So we want to make sure that we get the information back that we typed, because if I type something here in this and type that, click that, you see that it disappears. So we can create a simple function that can do this work for us. So what we'll call that function is entirely up to you, but I will call it set value, or you can call it get value, or it doesn't really matter. So right on the input here, I will put a value attribute, like so. That way I can set a value of the input, even on a refresh. So I'm going to use the echo for PHP. So open tag, and instead of PHP echo like this, I'm just going to put the equal sign and then close that PHP tag. So in here, I can type some PHP. So what I'll do is I'll run a function. I'll call this function set value. For no apparent reason, you can call it anything. So I want this function to return a value, which we are going to echo, because remember this equal sign means echo. So we're going to echo that value, and it needs to know which parameter or param inside the post variable to check for. So in this case, this one is named first name. So let's put that over there like so. Okay, that should solve the problem. So let me copy this value thingy and add it here on last name as well. And of course, don't forget to change that to last name. Otherwise, it will load the wrong thing. Same here, we're going to change that to email. And let's see here, password, same thing, I guess. We'll put back the password. And retype password, same thing. We'll do retype password. Yeah, so this is, I agree to the terms. So there's a difference here because this input is a checkbox, right? So it doesn't really work like the other ones. We don't set a value for it because the value will always be 1, but it can either be checked or unchecked. That's what determines whether it's checked. So if we have something written checked, just like this, within this, then this will be checked. If not, then it will be unchecked. So this is what we are looking for. We want to either check or uncheck depending if the user had checked it before. So I've removed the value up to here, and that, so that we just echo the value that we're returning. So this one is terms, right? Now the thing is with these checkboxes is this: if this checkbox is not if it's not checked, it won't even send any information at all. It will be like it doesn't exist, and then when you check it, it will send some information. That's how it works. So all we need to do is to check if it's empty. Then we know if the result of this is empty, we are going to know that this is unchecked. If it has something, then we know it was checked. So I want us to create an if statement here that evaluates the answer of this. If we get a 1, because normally the value will be 1 because the value is 1 all the time. So we expect a 1 or nothing. So if we don't get anything, then we know it wasn't checked. But if we get something, then it was. So what we do is we put a question mark here. Now, in a statement like this, once you put a question mark here, then it becomes an if statement. This becomes an if statement. So if something is returned here, because keep in mind that if you put an if statement and say if this is equal to true, is exactly as saying if this, just like that. Okay, so if this and that, these two are exactly the same thing. So in this case, what we're evaluating is the result here. So we know it's going to either be 1 or nothing. So nothing will be equal to false. Something will be 1, which will be equal to true. So if I put a question mark, then here I can put 2 things to echo if, depending on the situation, right? So remember this okay, so I can put a semicolon there. This is how this if statement works. So this is the same as saying if this is true, echo this. We're echoing because of that equal sign. If it's false, we're going to echo what's in here. But we don't care if it's false, we won't echo anything. But if it's true, we'll say checked, like that. That's what we'll echo here, the word checked within here. And that will make sure it's checked. But let's create this function, of course, because we can't run things without, we can't try to call a function that does not exist. If we tried it and click there, you'll see that I'll get some errors. Now, I don't see these errors here, but if I right click, the reason I don't see the errors is because they're inside the inputs, right? So they are regarded as values. If you remember very well, this error here will be inside this value attribute. So that's why it doesn't show here, because it's considered part of the HTML value, which never shows like this. So let's just view the page source. Right click, view page source, and you will see the error here, fatal, call to undefined function set value. So it's telling me the function set value is undefined, which means it does not exist. So let's create it. So I'm going to go to my functions. Where is this? Functions.php. There's only one function currently, but we can create some more. So let's say function set value, like so. Oops, what have I done? Oh, so this was selected in two places. Sorry about that. Function set value. There we go. And then here we have the key, because that's what we are supplying. We are supplying a value to tell us which key we are looking for. So that's what we'll call key over here. So we'll check in the if not empty. Okay, so if not empty, post whatever is inside the post variable at that time, and this key here. So let's check for that key in particular. If that key exists, that's what we are looking for. So in here it exists. If it doesn't, we don't really care. So we're just going to return either false or an empty string. So that's entirely up to you. We can return an empty string, I think, because those are in the values, better an empty string than the false. But if it exists, let's return it. Yeah. So here we're just going to say return the key. So post key. So in case it's email, for example, this will be equal to email. So we're asking if not empty, post email, then return post email, which will return the value of that email. It's that simple. So let's refresh, and so now let's add some actual data and agree and send. So now we have this value. You can see the values have been kept. Even the agree thing has worked. If I undo it, you see it goes back to its normal and so on. So everything sticks, same as password. So everything is working as intended. Okay, very cool. So now that everything is well validated here, we can do deeper validation, but for now this is fine because we just want to see. And at this point, the only problem we have is we need, if things went well, so passwords do not match, but once they match, we should be able to submit to the database. The only problem is, or the only thing is, you see here, we have terms, right? Now, terms is not something that we have in our database. Here, if you can look at these columns here, we don't have terms, okay? So if we just try to put every, because I have two options here, let's think about it. In the user class here is where I want that insertion to happen, right? Now, I don't want to be writing, I can do that here. I can write a, actually let's change things up, we'll change things a bit here. I can write a query here and say something like query is equal to insert, because this is how an insert query happens. Insert into the table name, which is users in this case, and then we have two brackets like this and values like so. So this is what you should keep in your mind when you think of inserting into the database. So here it will ask you the column names. That's what you need to add. So here I can just copy that, bring it here and paste it like so, and then remove these gaps and put commas instead like so. Okay, so insert into users. Now I don't want to insert the ID, so let's remove that. That will be automatic. So email, first name, last name, password, row, date, fine. And then I'll copy this. Now since we want to use prepared statements, I'll copy this exactly. If we are not using prepared statements, these would be variables. And if you put variables here like email, you have to put single quotes like that to make sure if they are strings, they'll work, otherwise they might fail. But we're not going to use variables, we want to use prepared statements. So in front of each one of these, I'm going to put a full colon like so. And I won't actually supply any information in here. Instead, I'm going to run the DB query, which I'll do like this. Let me show you here. DB is equal to new database, right? And then I'm going to use that query to run here, and I'll say DB, because there's a function called query in the database thing, and it expects a query and some data over here like that. If you remember very well, this is inside the database class, which is right here. There is a query function that expects a query and an optional data variable. Okay, so in this case, the data is going to be what's in the post. So I'm going to copy and put it there. Okay, but there's a problem. Like I said, in the post variable, if we check very well, there is this thing called terms. There's also retype password, which is not part of the columns that exist here. So if I try to put this data here, even though I've specified the correct stuff here, it's going to say the number of items that are here and the number of items that are there do not match, because it needs an array that contains exactly the same number of items that I've put as variables here. So in order for us to test things very well, let's actually try this. Now here we only want to try if the validation went well. So I'm going to put an if statement here and say if user validates like so. So if I can say is equal to true, but like I said already, it's the same thing as doing that. So I'm just going to copy that, the insert, and put it here like this. So I'm going to try what won't work first. So this will only happen if the validation is correct, then we'll try to insert. Normally this should be enough, but let's try and refresh and see what happens. So I guess, did things work? You see, nothing was inserted there at all. I'm actually surprised it didn't give me an error immediately here. Oh, maybe because the validation didn't go through, that's why. So there's an error there. So let's make sure we pass that error. So let's do something like that and send. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a PDO exception and it's saying invalid parameter number. Parameter was not defined. So what this means is that the parameter number has, these are the parameters here, the variables, and what I've supplied there is different. So what I would have to do here is create a new array where I get, I'll say array and get first name, okay? I put all of these guys in there and then say is equal to and get from the post like this. Oops. Okay, so then I'll get this array and that's the array I'll put here like that. So this will work just fine. So let's try it. I'll get first name, last name. So I'm only going to get what I need. So I need email as well. And I need a single password. I don't need password retype. I just want password like this. So now that I've gotten only what I need, then I can do something. Now also, I need the date, right? So there's row and date, even though these have no, as in they can accept an empty value, but no, it does not. So what I'll do is I'll add it, a row row needs a value. So the default value should be just user. Okay, so now that I have gotten these and put them in another array that only has what I need, then I can supply it and things should work. So if I refresh my page one more time, it's still complaining. Number of bound variables does not match. That's because I forgot the date. Anyway, let's add the date, no problem. To create a new date, you just say date, and then you give it the format in terms of a string. So year -m -d. We need the hours, we need the seconds, the minutes and the seconds. Sorry, wrong thing there. Okay, there we go. So with that, it should work. Refresh, resend. Okay, now if I go to my thing and browse, you see that I have inserted a record in here like that. But you see, I don't like having to do this. I don't want to have to trouble myself with trying to figure out what's this. I don't even want to write a query like this. So let's see how we can change our model to do all this for us.